There are few words that feel as natural as the word mine. My house, my land, my money, my life. But ownership is not only a practical relationship between a person and a thing, it is one of the most powerful ideas in human history. To own something does not simply mean to hold it in your hand. It means that others must recognize that it is yours. It means that a group, custom, court, or state stands behind the line between you and the world. Ownership does not begin with the object, it begins with the prohibition. It begins when someone says, "You may not touch this." But ownership was probably not invented in one moment. It emerged slowly, in layers, like sediments settling in the ground. Among hunter-gatherers, certain forms of ownership were probably very ancient. A knife, spear, or basket could belong to a particular person, not in the modern legal sense, but through social understanding. This thing belongs to her. That thing belongs to him. A tool carries the trace of the person who uses it, the habit of the hand, the memory of the work. A bow is adjusted, repaired, practiced, and known. It becomes almost an extension of the body. That kind of ownership needs no land registry. It only needs memory. But land is different. Land cannot be carried. Land remains when people leave. To say, "This spear is mine," is one thing. To say, "This valley is mine," is something entirely different. Now we are no longer speaking only about use. We are speaking about boundaries, and boundaries require stories. For a very long time, human beings lived without private land ownership in the modern sense. That does not mean they lived in chaos. People had customs, hunting grounds, use rights, sacred places, and seasonal routes. But when cultivation becomes more permanent, the relationship to land changes. A field is not only a place, it is labor placed into the ground. It has been cleared, sown, watered, and waited for. Here, a stronger thought is born. The person who has worked the land has a special claim to it. Ownership grows out of labor, but it also grows out of fear. As soon as something can be stored, it can also be stolen. Everything that can be accumulated can be defended. Everything that can be defended can be controlled. And everything that can be controlled can eventually be taxed. Here, ownership moves closer to the state. A field can be measured, the harvest weighed, the farmer registered, and the boundary drawn. When something can be written down, it can be turned into property. Ownership was no longer a relationship between person and thing. It became a relationship between person, thing, and institution. A property boundary is never only a line in the soil. It is a political invention, a social spell, an invisible wall that works only as long as enough people believe in it, fear it, or are forced to obey it. A fence is wood, but ownership is obedience. This does not mean ownership is only violence. It can also create security, protect the weak from the strong, and make it possible to plan, build, cultivate, and save. But ownership always has two faces. It protects and it excludes. When someone says, "This is mine," they also say, "It is not yours." And there, inequality begins to take physical form. A person can carry only one spear, but can own 1,000 hectares. A person can sleep in only one room, but can own 100 houses. Ownership allows the human being to become larger than the body. That is its genius and its danger. Inheritance is one of ownership's strangest ideas. Something I control today can belong to someone else tomorrow, not because that person made it or used it, but because blood, name, and law bind us together. Inheritance turns ownership into a time machine. It makes wealth long-lived, power hereditary, and history uneven before people are even born. One child is born on land, another is born with land. Those two children are not born into the same world. Still, there is no simple story in which humans were first free and equal, and then fell from grace. David Graeber and David Wengrow have argued that early societies experimented with many forms of freedom, hierarchy, and authority. History was not a single road toward private property, it was a laboratory. Ownership was not inevitable in the exact form we know today. People have had personal belongings without private land ownership, common resources without modern socialism, cities without kings, and rules without police. A person can own shares in a company they have never visited, rights to music they cannot play, and land that someone else works. Ownership has left the hand and lives in the system, and yet it still feels intimate. My phone, my account, my images, my thoughts. We experience ownership as natural, but it is one of humanity's most advanced fictions. A cow does not know it is property. A field does not know who owns it. Human beings tell ownership to one another, and sometimes we believe this story so deeply that it becomes harder than stone. So, who invented ownership? Not the farmer, king, state, or scribe alone. Ownership was invented by the human need to remember, protect, divide, store, inherit, and control. It began in the hand that held the tool, grew through the village that remembered who had sown, and became real through the law that made the boundary enforceable. But perhaps the deepest question is not who invented ownership, but what ownership invented in us. Because when human beings learned to say, "This is mine," they also learned that the world could be divided, the future reserved, and that a line could become more real than the landscape. And since then, we have lived inside those lines. Some protect us, some imprison us, and many are so old that we have begun to call them nature.